Good morning, Rabbi Sai. Lilu Nishma Simi Mirosi Rusbas Mordechai. Feeling a lot better today. Yesterday, I had all these charts, and it was a lot of pressure because the day before I was in bed, laid up a lot. And then I realized, whoa, I got to do all these charts. I got an email here. Let's see if I can find it. This guy sends in good stuff. Here we go. From Reb Moshe F. Zavdu are the 4 days of Rosh Chodesh Adar. Rosh Chodesh Adar can fall out. Not the days of Purim. I think I said Purim for a minute. But the rest of the shir, I was talking about Rosh Chodesh the whole time. But in case somebody thought that Zavdu is Purim, I apologize. Uvyu. So yesterday, I think during shir, I realized that this is supposed to be a Beis. Or, if it falls out on Friday, then you don't say the second day after Rosh Chodesh Beis. You don't read twice. And this was not Tezvav, it's Yudvav. Yudvav means Tezayin, right? So we discussed that. Yudvav was just a little bit of a mix-up. We don't want to go back there. Akol Beseder, Yishkoich Moshe. Over here we have an anonymous guy, although his last name is Dafner. So I don't know if it's intentional. Dafner. I've started this year since Titus and was thinking of quitting at the end of this Masechta, but I saw this past week how even though you were ill, kept delivering the shir with the same geschmack as you normally do. Thank you. That has inspired me. And I will, be'ezus Hashem, keep on going. Thanks for changing my life for the better. Shkoyach. Over here, Rabbi Isai, we have a beautiful thing. We have the Posen Boys, deep in Maseches Megillah. Look at this. It's gewaldic. It's one of my favorite pictures, actually. If you look closely, they're actually sincere. They're watching. This is their entertainment. Torah. Hi, Reb Eli, how are you? I joined the UI at the end of Maseches Tainus. I'm very excited to be Messiah Maseches Megillah this Thursday. I'm a member of Chaverim of Rockland for the past 13 years and was inspired to see over 30 Chaverim units that are currently doing the Daf daily, and especially the famous Molandi 108, Unit 108. Isaac Schwade, 501. Shleima Goldenberg, 6. This morning, my 5-year-old Shimon comes into my room, 5:30 a.m., and has an important announcement to make, and yells on top of his lungs, "Good morning, Rabbi Sai!" At 5:30 in the morning. That's it. I was up and couldn't go back to sleep. Thank you, Reb Eli, for all you do, even with a cold. Shkoyach Yoili Lofler C24. Here's the geschmacky kid that woke up his parents at 5:30 in the morning. And this is one of these names. I wish somebody was here to help me out. Baruch, Wajesfeld. Weisfeld. How do you spell? I don't know. They didn't teach us. Volkswagen with the W. Okay, I don't know. This is the Chassan. This is me with the Chassan. Baruch, Wajesfeld. Now it is Chasana. I feel bad for the new wife. She has to pronounce this name. We took this picture special for Reb Eli. Mazel Tov. This is from... forgot his name. Reb Shimon something. Solomon. Shkoyach. Thanks, Mark. Reb Shimon Solomon. Here you go. They look like Harlina Hasidim. I don't know why, but that's what they look like. So, yesterday, you're not going to believe this, a great Maisa. I said during Shir that Tomer Levi, he'll put a stand in the middle of the Merkaz and try to solicit people to come to the Shir. Simon Cohen, who's been with us for like 2 years, world famous Chazan, very, very good Chazan. He's famous and whatever, concerts, the whole thing. So he thought I was joking. Tomer Levi's going to put up a stand, a normal guy, put up a stand in the middle of the street. So he texted him. He said, it's a funny joke, Eli said. So Tomer sends him the pictures of him with the stand. And he told him he got like 20 guys, whatever it was, that day on a Friday. So he says, send me like a brochure or something. Send me something that I can put on my status. So he goes and he puts it on his status, I think. And within 2 hours, 18 people signed up. 18 in 2 hours. just from putting something on a status. The zechus that a person has for almost doing nothing. Just getting a picture from somebody, posting on your status, free Gemara, 18 people. Yesterday, I went to Yeshivat Mivaseret. We have some great Maggid Yishurim. One of the Maggid Yishurim is in my building, Rabbi Leibowitz, and one of them lives up the block, Rabbi Berg. It's John Berg's brother. Victor Foll just raised his hands. I guess they're related. Yeah, they're related. So, I went there. You're not going to believe this. Close to 70 guys signed up for this year. 7-0. So, Rabbi Isai, people are thirsty for Torah. If you present it in the right way, you can get people to come. We're starting the new Masechta this Friday. It's our last chance to convince people to jump on board. The Koilel this month is sponsored by Chayim. I forgot to look up when is it over. Okay, remind me. Lili Nishmas Yeshua, Arya, Leyb, Kohen, Ben Yonas, and Chayim, the young Bacher from Esha Torah that was just nifter. Refuah, Sidi Dana, Reb Shalom Baruch, Yudim, and Malka Freda. His wife wrote us that things are getting better, Baruch Hashem. And appreciating all the chesed, all the money. And they just put up a page to help the family. So all the things that are going on behind the scenes, the chesed of MDY. Sponsored by the Davis and Kessler families and zechus for Refuah shleima for Miriam Esther bas Devora. Maseches Megillah sponsored by Shmuly F245. Leading for Mordechai Shlema Tobia. Ben Avram Moshe Peres Ner Yair. By Pinny Brecher from yesterday. In honor of Shragi and Noam Goldberg. May they start the daf today. Takes twice to sponsor to get them on. Motty Perl in honor of my Chavrusa Eliezer ben Rachel Leah Lezivug Hagud Bekar Mamish. Rabbi said we always talk about it and I haven't done anything about it. We should do some sort of WhatsApp group where people could send in their resumes. We'll make shidduchim. It'll be unbelievable. We say it's a great idea, but nobody took it by the horn. Somebody needs to just grab these. I have a whole pile of resumes. I don't know what I'm doing with it. Motty Perl, in honor of my Chavrusa, I said, Shalitsky and Yampel families. Sorabas Reb Shaya Yitzchok Aleh Shalom Yellen. Avram Yeshua ben Reb Nachum Zechron El also our Mechuteniste. Chai Rezel Bas Reb Eli Shal Yampel. And her husband, Reb Yaakov Moshe Ner Yair. He learns the daf of the Reb Eli as does his son-in-law Shaya and Grandson Shloime. Amazing. And I think there's a little more. I think I said Lili Nishmas Imi Merosis Rusbas Mordechai. Cheskel Breier, Mazel Tov and happy birthday, Chumi, Gesund health, happy till 120. Thank you, Eli, for giving me such a good cheer every day. Thank you, Cheskel Breier. Chabad of MDY. Menachem told me before the shir it's not him. He doesn't know what I'm talking about. In honor of the 72nd yard side of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchok ben Reb Sholem Doiv Ber, and in honor of the 71st anniversary of our Rebbe accepting the Nesius. May they continue to have much nachas from all of us. Rabbi Isai, here we go. Today's daf, Amud Aleph, 30 daf into the Masechta. Unbelievable, 30 days go by like that. We're holding a brand new Mishnah, which means it's a brand new Masechta. It's a great day to start. We have a very interesting daf today. Not a lot of opportunities for stories, jokes. It's a daf which is going to tell us all about Kriyas HaTorah. What are you laying here? What are you laying there? Says the Mishnah, Bepesach, Korin, Beparshas Moyadois, Shel Torah's Kohanim. Pesach, the first day of Pesach. The other days of Pesach, the Gemara is going to tell us there's a whole list of different things. We fly through the Torah from here to there. But the first day of Pesach, we read in Torah's Kohanim is Vayikra. Over there's a whole parsha that we're very familiar with Pinchas talking about Yom Tovim, but also in Vayikra talks about Yom Tovim. We start on top and we go through until we get to Pesach and we pass Pesach. Today we don't do that. A lot of the stuff that we have in the Mishnah, a lot of the halachas that we have in the Mishnah don't apply to us today, based on the Gemaras mostly. In one instance, I hope to remember, Tosfos says it's a mistake. Why do we do it like that today? So it's interesting why we changed the Mishnah. It seems like the Mishnah wasn't a solid halacha that was accepted. The Ga'inim later on, they changed it around. Batzeres, on Shavuos, Shiva Shavuos. Be'Rosh Hashanah, somebody's not muted, I don't know who. Be'Rosh Hashanah, what are we laying on Rosh Hashanah? Ba'Chodesh hashvi be'echad lachodesh. Once again, we don't really do that on Rosh Hashanah. Chodesh Hashvi talks about Rosh Hashanah. B'yom HaKippurim achrei ma'is. This we do today on Yom Kippur. Achrei ma'is. B'yom Tov Rishon Shel Chag. What do we do on the first day of Sukkot? Kairim beParshas Moyados Shabbatos Kahanim. Again, going back to that parsha in Vayikra that discusses the different Yom Tovim, we get to Sukkot. Ubeshar Kol Yemais HaChag. What do we read on Chol Moed? Bekarbanos HaChag. We read the famous pasuk. Yeah. So I have here a chart. It's time to throw in something that's a little bit more complicated than the. What do you read here? What do you read there? So this is based on Rashi. Didn't really have time to make my own little chart. Stole it from the Hebrew Art Scroll. I know it looks confusing, but it's very, very simple. I just want to tell you the basic idea what Rashi is saying here. Basically, there's a long Rashi. Rashi says that the first 2 days of Yantiv in Chutz La'aretz, we read the same thing. It wouldn't make sense to read and tell everybody, hey, we have a suffix today. And to read maybe Tuesdays, the third day of Yantiv. Like as if it's a Chol Hamoed. So what do? The first 2 days, we read the same thing. Yantiv, today is Yantiv. The second day of Yantiv, it's Sveged Yom, and we know it's a suffix, but we don't need to announce it and say, oh, it might be a Chol Hamoed today. But what do we read on every day of a Chol Hamoed? So this is in Chutz La'aretz. We have Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, Revi. If you look closely, the only machlokes that we have between the Ashkenazim and the Sfardim, between Rashi, who's from France, Ashkenazi, and the Rif, Rambam, Sfardim, is only on the third day. Okay? The Sfardim seem to be pushing it, making it closer. So we'll see. Let's take the first day of Chol Hamoed. First day of Chol Hamoed is the third day of Yantiv. Yom Shlishi Shel Sukkos. So we read, Ubayom HaSheni, Ubayom HaShlishi is the next Aliyah, and the following Aliyah is B'yom Revi. So we read about the second day of Sukkos, the third day of Sukkos, and the fourth day of Sukkos. And Revi, we go back to Sheni and Shlishi. We repeat the second and third days. Okay? Oh, and zoom it off a little bit. Mark, you're supposed to remind me if it's off. It's difficult to. Let me see if I can move it.
He didn't sponsor the Mishnah.
Oh, good point. L'schos Ruchni. I just realized who it is because I was going with Tomer Levi. Tomer told me it's his brother Gad from Chicago. So Yishkoyach Gad. L'schos Ruchni. Shimshin David Lipa. That's one son. Yosef Yehuda. Yeshua Michal. B'nei Yehudis Beila. Gad Levi, who live in Deerfield, Illinois, where I own a property, where not too many from people are there. I don't think if any, but he does kiruv over there, so it's amazing. Kiruv guy, he's a mile that travels the world, or America, I should say, but he's sponsoring Mishnahs. It's unbelievable. So again, if it's the first day of Chol Hamoed, we do B'yom Sheni first Aliyah, B'yom Shlishi second Aliyah, B'yom Revi, and B'yom Chamishi. Or go back, B'yom Sheni, B'yom Shlishi. The only thing is, so then it repeats itself. The fourth day, fifth day. Here is where it becomes interesting. Yom HaShishi, we do Chamishi, Shishi, Shvi, and then we repeat Chamishi and Shishi. What do we do on the seventh day of Sukkot? You can't go and talk about Shmini, because Shmini is already Simchas Torah. It's a different Yantiv. So you can't do 5, 6, or 6, 7, 8. You can't do 6, 7, 8, even though it's the last day. So you do the same exact aliyahs as the day before. Chamishi, Shishi, Shvi. The only difference is, Rabbi Isai, is the final aliyah Revi. Whereas on the sixth day, we repeat fifth and sixth. And the seventh day, we repeat sixth and seventh. Okay, the only difference between the sixth day and the seventh day in Chutz La'aretz is the final aliyah. What do you repeat? That's all Rashi says. It's a long Rashi. Okay, now we got the complicated stuff out of the way. Says the Mishnah B'Chanukah, Benasiyim. So we read the Nesiyim. We all know the Nesiyim. Korbanai, Karas Kesef Achad, Shlishim, right? Every day. different day. B'Chanukah b'Nasi. B'Purim, Vayavay Amalek. Makes sense, because in Purim, we're talking about Amalek. Haman came from Amalek. B'Rosh Chodashim, what do we say on Rosh Chodesh? U'v'Rosh Chodshechem. Now, today we read a few psukim before, like 10 psukim or whatever. Before that, it's Karbani Lachmili Yishai. Okay? Different. B'Mamadais, what do they read? What's Mamadais? So in Mivaseret, I asked them, does anybody know what Mamadais is? Two kids, two bachim raised their hand. Mamadais is, I told them I'm not going to tell them what it is. They have to learn Shas to know. But you guys know already. Mamadais are the Yisraelim that represent Klal Yisrael for the carbon every day. They switch off different groups. Every week it's another group. And they have to fast, they have to daven, and they learn from the Torah. From Parshas Bereshis, every day of the week corresponds to the day of Maaseh Bereshis. That's on Monday. Tuesday is Yom Shlishi, etc. Until they get to Vayechulu. B'mamadas b'Maaseh Bereshis. B'taniyos, what do they say by Tainas? Daf Lamed Aleph, Amud Aleph on top. Brachos u'klalois. On a Tainas, what do we learn today by a Tainas? Vayichal. The Mishnah says that we learn the brachos and the klalos. Says Rashi, to teach people, and there's two types of klalos we have to understand. We'll see in the Gemara. One is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, and that's in Bechukosai. And then the other one is Moshe Rabbeinu said. So we're talking about the real deal, the one that Hashem said himself. And it's to tell people that, why are you fasting today? You're fasting because there's a calamity, there's something going on in the world, there's no rain. It's your fault. You need to do tshuva. It's because you sinned. So to remind people about the Averis, and as we mentioned yesterday, the tzibur gets together, they decide what could be the Aver. Let's think about it. I think I once mentioned this when I was a kid. I was shocked. I remember this till this day. Every time I think about it, I'm grossed out, basically. I was at a funeral. They asked us to go to a funeral of a young woman that got killed in a car crash. And they asked our school if we could come. They wanted kids at the funeral. And one of the Rabbanim got up there. I'm embarrassed to say this. He got up there and he says, you know why she was nifter in a car crash? Because women in our generation, they drive cars. They lack tznius. And I remember as a kid thinking, this guy's not, what right does he have to decide why somebody was nifter? And he knows that's a big avera, and it's not a big avera, and he knows that that's why this woman, crazy. But in those days, they would get together, and yes, try to figure out, we need to fix our ways. There's a reason why there's no rain here. And if we can figure it out, obviously they didn't come up with the car thing, came up with more serious things. And they would do tshuva, and then hopefully, whatever happens, there's a famine, there's no rain, there's a disease, corona, whatever it is, we have to do tshuva. So you don't stop an aliyah and give somebody an aliyah in the middle of the curses, in the middle of the klalas. If you notice today, it's one long shot. The Bakari does it really quickly, quietly. One guy gets it, he himself gets it, and that's it. And the Gemara is going to explain why. B'sheni b'chamishi b'Shabbos, Mondays and Thursdays, we take it for granted. We take everything for granted because we're very familiar with this Gemara. And the machlokes in the Gemara, what do we learn on Mondays and Thursdays? What do we learn on Shabbos afternoon? So perhaps you should read a little bit and then read on Thursday a little bit further. No, we repeat the same psukim, the beginning of, let's say last week was Parshas Bereshis, this week Parshas Noach, we read the beginning of Parshas Noach. You could think that maybe on Thursday you read from Sheni on, or whatever, and then on Shabbos you just pick it up from Revi. But we take it for granted that on Shabbos we repeat everything, and that's based on this Gemara over here. On this Mishnah. You read the Parshas Shavua. You don't continue from Sheni Shlishi, you go backwards. And you repeat the whole parasha. Shenemar, Vayidaber Moshes Mayadi Hashem el Bnei Yisrael, Mitzvasan Shiu Kairin Kol Echad V'Echad Bizmanoi. It says in the pasuk that Moshe Rabbeinu spoke about the Yom Tovim. So, where do you see that you should read different things? This is going on the entire Mishnah. You should read Pesach, you should talk about Sukkot. So the final Rashi in the Masechta, you could open up to the final Rashi. And Rashi says, I don't understand. Wasn't everything said by Hashem? Moshe said it to Yisrael. By Daber Moshe Moyadi Hashem Bnei Yisrael. Every mitzvah. So how come it doesn't say Vayidaber Moshe lulav to Klal Yisrael? Vayidaber Moshe, you have to eat matzah to Klal Yisrael. Says Rashi, it's coming to tell you that Moshe Rabbeinu repeated it on Yontif. That's how we learn now from this pasuk. So when it says Vayidaber Moshe's Moyad Hashem b'nei Yisrael, since it's extra, so from the extra pasuk I learned that every Yontif Moshe Rabbeinu tell Klal Yisrael, Rabbi said today is Pesach, you have to do X, Y, Z. Today is Sukkot, you do this. That's why I always mention the Vilna Gaon. Every day of Sukkot learned the entire Maseches Sukkot. Every Shabbos he learned the entire Maseches Shabbos. Maybe it has to do with this Vayidaber Moshe's Moyad Hashem. Torah about it. Pesach Korim and Parshas Moyados Umaftirin bePesach Gilgal. So, like the Mishnah says, that on the first day of Pesach you read from Vayikra about the Yom Tovim, including Pesach. What do you say in the Haftarah? The first Pesach, carbon Pesach that was ever shechted in Eretz Yisrael. It's called Pesach Gilgal. So it's Minyan of the Yom. It's about what we're reading, what we're doing. We're Pesach. It's the day of yesterday we shechted the carbon, so we read it in the Haftarah. Vayidna Diketre Yoime. So now the Gemara takes a little bit of a break. We're in the middle of a brisa, and the Gemara goes off a little bit on a tangent to explain us what do we do in Chutz La'aretz. Vayidna Diketre Yoime. And today, that is 2 days of Yom Tov in Chutz La'aretz. Yom Kama bePesach Gilgal. What do we're not going to repeat the same Haftarah. It's going to be boring. So one day, the first day, we read about the first carbon Pesach in Eretz Yisrael. Well, the Pesach yeshi'ah, the Haftarah discusses how yeshi'ah brought a carbon Pesach. Yesha'i'ah Pesach, and the rest of the days of Pesach. He reads different things about Pesach. Mahi. By the way, on Pesach, we bring 2 Sefer Torahs outside of the Aron. On Sukkot, only 1. So you have to read different things. Mai, Omer Rav Papa. I don't know how to pronounce it, but in my Gemara it says Mei Apoi. Mapoi, whatever it is. Mapoi, and that's it, the Gemara goes on. Obviously you know what Mapoi is, but just in case you don't, Mapoi stands for Mishkan. Mishchu, Im Kesef, Psalacha, and Vayidaber. Okay? These are the 4 parshiyos, Mapoi. See, I didn't know. I thought it's Mishkan. So it's a good thing I wrote it down. Mishchu. But everybody else knows what Mapoi is besides me. Mapoi, Simon. Yom Tov Achron Shel Pesach. What do you read on Shvi Shel Pesach? Vayihi B'Shalach. Guess what parsha that is? Yep, this week's parsha. Why do we read Vayihi B'Shalach on Shvi Shel Pesach? Because that's when the Kriyas Yamsuf happened. And Vayihi B'Shalach is talking about Kriyas Yamsuf. The 7th day, they ran out of Mitzrayim, and the Mitzrayim almost caught them, and then you have the 7th day of Pesach is Kriyas Yamsuf. Umaftirin Vayidaber David. So Vayidaber David is like a shira. If you look in the Tehillim, it looks like a shira. There's a word here, blank word here, like a shira. And I think I mentioned this back, but I'll tell you again, that there's a kapitel Tehillim that's literally identical to this Navi, with a few differences, very minor differences. So the Belzer Chassid in our Koil told me, I think he was joking. He said that what they do by the Chassidim, they give him this Haftarah to read. They read it. If he makes a lot of mistakes, it's because he's so familiar with the Tehillim, and the Haftarah is different, that he makes mistakes in the Haftarah. That's a great sign if he makes mistakes, because that means he knows his Tehillim very well. But if he reads the Haftarah like a Litvak would read it, perfect. Just read it. He doesn't realize there's any mistakes. Then they kick him out of there. They break the shidduch. No shidduch. That means he doesn't do Tehillim. Okay. Joke. I hope. Or maybe by the real starker ones, it's not a joke. Says the Gemara. Ulamachar kol habachar. So, that's Shmini Shel Pesach, in Chutz La'aretz, kol habachar. Umaftirin oid hayoim. Oid hayoim, Rashi says, is about some chayrev, they're going to get destroyed. So, it happened on the last day of Pesach, so we read it then. Amar Abaye. V'yidno noga almol l'mikri, mishach, toiro, kaddish, b'kaspo, psol, b'madbero, shlach, buchro. Okay? It's great, it's a great memory aid. Mishach toiro, kaddish, b'kaspo, psal, b'madbero, shlach, buchro. But if you want to see, this is what it stands for. All these things, mishach means mishchu, toiro is an ox, shor kesef, kaddish li in Kesef Talve, Psalacha, B'Midbar Sinai, B'Shalach, Vayib'Shalach, that's this week's parasha, Kol HaBachar. That's how you remember it. Batzeres on Shavuos, Shiva Shavuos. You read Shiva Shavuos, Umaftirim B'Chabakuk. Why are you maftir? Chabakuk is about Matan Torah. Acher Moimrim, B'Chodesh Shlishi, we talk about Matan Torah, the Aseres HaDibros. Umaftirim B'Merkava. And the Haftarah is Merkava. I don't know if you remember, we just had a few days ago that you don't read anything about Merkava. We do today, one time a year by Shavuos, I said as a joke, because that's when everybody's sleeping, so we could just say the Merkava and go on. But the reason why we read the Merkava on Shavuos night is because Merkava is these Heichen Yanim, it's about Matan Torah is Gili Shechina. We never had Ras al-Shivcha, the slave saw more than Cheskel ben Buzi, what a Navi saw. There's a real Gili Shechina, so we talk about the Merkava on Shavuos night. Or Shavuos morning. There's 2 days of Shavuos. Avdin and Ketarvayu, V'ipcha. We do like both of these shitas, but we flip it around. We do the Matan Torah first, and then only afterwards Shiva Shavuos, the second day. Rosh Hashanah, what do we learn in Rosh Hashanah? B'chodesh Hashvi, Umaftirin habein Yakir li Ephraim, because it says in the pasuk Zachar Eskereno, I'll remember Rachim Arachameno, I'll have Rachmanas on you. If I was in the Beis Medrash now, which I'm not, I was actually thinking, because of this daf, the way it's situated, it's not like these Gishmaki Sugyas, I was thinking about having like Nachman Seltzer and the whole choir come, like, show up over here. No. The Yamin Schwartz says not a good idea. Okay, Baruch Hashem, I didn't do it. He wouldn't be happy. But it would have been Gishmak to sing this song in the Beis Medrash. You could all join yourselves and sing in your head. V'yeshaymrim, v'Hashem pokad which we're familiar with. That's the day. Rosh Hashanah is the day that Kosh Baruch Hu decided Tzara Imenu was going to have Yitzchak umaftirin bechana, and the Haftarah is Chana, and how she had Shmuel, that was also on Rosh Hashanah. I was thinking when I read it, I thought Chana is all the concepts of tefillah we learned in brachas and everywhere else. We learned how to daven from Chana, and that's Rosh Hashanah. Rashi says no. It's about Chana was nifkad, maybe because of her tefillah, but that was the day Hashem decided, like He decides everything else, our parnasa, our health, and who's going to get pregnant and who's not going to get pregnant. That happened on Rosh Hashanah for Chana, so that's why we lay in Chana and after. Now, there's always 2 days, even in Eretz Yisrael, Yom Kamok Yeshayimrim, Lemachar Ve'alikim Nisas Avram. And the second day, we talk about Akedas Yitzchak, that reminds us Baruch Hu of our sacrifice. Avram sacrifice. By the way, as we mentioned when we talk about Akedah always, Avram Avinu brought down to the world the idea, or the ability, I should say, for Klal Yisrael to sacrifice themselves. Over the years, Gzeres Tachtat in Spain, when they said either you bow to the cross or we'll burn you in the city center, and so many thousands of Jews gave up their lives, burned to death. Where did a Jew get that ability, that strength in the war, in the Shoah? Where did he get the strength to say, no, I'm not going to do this, kill me? From Avram Avinu, from that one time that he did that, we see it all over Shas. When Avram Avinu did this, it gave us the ability to do chesed. He did this, so he gave us the ability to be Meiser Nefesh. V'lekim nisas Avram, umaftir na ben Yakir. V'yom Kippurim, koyin achri mois, umaftirin, ki choy amar rom v'nisa. It talks about tshuva. So pay attention to this, because it took me a little bit of time to chop this. What do we say in the Haftarah of Yom Kippur? Ki choy amar rom v'nisa. Okay, because that is going to come up in 2 lines. Ubemincha koyin barayas. Mincha, we talk about illicit relations, arayas, so that if people were over, they should do tshuva. Umaftirin biyoina. What so? Maftir yoina, like Morius Formus in the shul that I used to give the daf, that das, I gave a dafter for 8 years. So when it came to maftir yoina, one year, the Gabi goes, $18 maftir yoina. So he screams out, 18,000. And that was it. Nobody tried to up him. Yeah, he's a huge Baal Tzedakah. I spoke about him many times. Rav Shach said he's the Gola Dar and Tzedakah. You should go ask a bracha. Anyway, fine. Back in the day, he used to donate buildings everywhere. The Or Sameach campus, all these things. Okay, fine. Zok the Gemara. But yes'í'ha, what's the beauty of yes'í'ha? It's that a whole city could do tshuva, but also yes'í'ha couldn't run away. He thought he's going to disappear and he's going to go into the ocean. Hashem won't find him. Wherever you are, you could be on the moon, he'll find you there. And another beautiful thing about yes'í'ha, once we mentioned yes'í'ha for the new guys, yes'í'ha was a simple person. But there's a whole sefer called yes'í'ha Hanavi. Why is he a Navi? Because of the idea that when he went to Beis HaMikdash and he was b'simcha, he was happy by Simchas Beis HaSheva. He rejoiced with HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the point where Hashem gave him nevuah. He's a simple Jew. Hashem gave him nevuah, and forever he's in the Navi as yes'í'ha Navi in the whole story because of that one time that he acted b'simcha for Hashem. Says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, I'm learning this Gemara, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, I felt so good. It was like, Eli, I see your memory is coming back. You mamish, you remember all Shas, because I remember this Gemara has many Masechtas. So I go and I do a search, and I don't find it in any Masechta. So what's going on here? I was so excited about my memory, and then I realized, no, I say it on Motzi Shabbos by Vayitin Lecha. So I thought it's all over Shas. This is the only place, I think. Over there is Gdulas Baruch Hu. I guess they'll stick that in here on the side. I didn't look, but I think so. I can't really see these words, so Sham, yeah, Sham at the if you say Vayitin Lecha, you know what I'm talking about. Dav is zechus about Torah, all this is Vayitin Lecha. It's when HaKadosh Baruch Hu talks about his greatness, you see immediately his humility. You see it in the Torah, B'shanim b'Neviim, it's repeated in Navi, Mishlosh b'Ksuvim, and it's said in the Ksuvim. So, Zechus about Torah, Hashem Elokeichem hu Elokeichem Elokim v'Adinei Dinim. He's the Hashem of all gods. Immediately, you know what? He deals with the small things, with the guy. People nobody pays attention to, the Yisayim, the Almanas. Shanim b'Neviim. So now that I gave you a big hint, let me ask you something. Why does this Gemara say, anytime you see Hashem's greatness, you see his humility, what does it have to do with Megillah Daf Lamed Aleph and all the haftarahs that we read on Yom Kippur and this and that? Oh, because it says that on Yom Kippur you read Kaya Mar Ram Venisa. I told you to remember that pasuk. And here it says, B'Nevim, Kaya Mar Ram Venisa Sheichen Avikadosh. See Basrei, V'Zdaku Shval Ruach. Shval Ruach, a humble. Mishlosh B'Ksuvim, it says it in Ksuvim. T'chsev Soiler Reichu Ba'aravais, Beya Shemai. U'chsi Basrei, Avi Yisayim V'Dayal Manos. Yondav Rishon Shechag, Koyim Be'Parshas Moyadish B'Shum Taris Khan. The first day of Sukkot, Chag is Sukkot. We read the Parsha of Vayikra. Umaftirin, Hine Yoim Bol Hashem is talking about Sukkot. Vayina Digetrei Yoim, and now the Chutzlars we have 2 days. L'machar Mikra Na'al Chanami Karina. Okay, so you'll repeat the same laning, but Afturin Ma'im Afturina, what do you say in the Haftarah? Vayikalu El HaMelech Shleima. It's talking about the Chanukas HaMizbeach, and that happened on Sukkot. And the rest of the days, we read the korbanos of Yontav. Yontav Achron Korin, Kol HaBachar, Mitzvos V'chukim U'Bchar. U'Maftirim Vayiki Chaloi Shloimoi. This is the 8th day of Yontav. L'machar Korin V'Zois HaBracha. What do we read on Shmini Atzeres and on Simchas Torah? We read V'Zois HaBracha. U'Maftirim V'Yamod Shloimoi. So this is the Taisus I want to point out real quickly. So Taisus says over here, Taisus Dibur Maskil L'machar Karina, and he says, which we do today. In our shows, we read Vayi. Says Taisus V'Shibashu. It's a mistake. Yes, there's a lot of stuff we do different than the Mishnah because it's brought down in our Gemara. But if it's not mentioned in the Gemara, what right do we have to say a different haftarah? But that's what we do. So he says maybe maybe it does come. There is a source. Says Gemara, when Shabbos falls out in the middle, because that is a parasha that talks about Shabbos, it talks about Yontif, it talks about Chalamoid. It has everything. It's all encompassing. Afture, what do we say? So there's a story in the Navi where the whole Shevet, they ran away from Mitzrayim. They broke the wall, they got out of there. Like 30 years before everybody else. They ended up dying from starvation or whatever. So their bones were dry. Later on, Cheskel Navi, Kosh Baruch did Tchias HaMeisim. So because they left Mitzrayim, so we talk about it. Says the Gemara, Ubesukos beyoim by Goig. B'Chanukah b'Nesim u'maftirim b'Neiros the Zechariah. Zechariah had a Refuah about a menorah, so it fits in with Chanukah. V'Miklish Tei Shabbosos, and if it happens that 2 Shabbosos fall out in Chanukah, Kamais b'Neiros the Zechariah, the first one is Zechariah. B'Srais b'Neiros Shleima, he made the menorah and the Misamidish. B'Purim v'Yavam Oli b'Rosh Chodashim u'Rosh Chodshechem. Rosh Chodesh Chalis b'Shabbos. What happens when Rosh Chodesh falls out on Shabbos? Happens all the time. Maftirim v'Yom Midei Chodesh b'Chodshim. We lay in Midei Chodesh b'Chodshim. Chalis b'Shabbos. What if Rosh Chodesh falls out on a Sunday? Miyad b'Maftirin. So the day before on Shabbos we read V'Yom Elo Yehoynesan Machor Chodesh. Omer Avuna. Now we turn to Daf Amud Aleph from Beis, sponsored by Moshe Horn and Woody Wyman as a zechus for Morty Moskowitz, and in honor of myself, that is by Chaim Peretz Levine, yishkoich Reb Chaim Peretz. Anonymous Reb Chaim Peretz. I shouldn't say anything, but since he mentioned that he believes that his daughter got engaged in the month that he sponsored and has everything to do, and that's why he gave out Gemaras at the Devora, even though it's a little embarrassing, so I'm mentioning his name. Rosh Chodesh Shabbos, Shechales b'Shabbos. What happens Rosh Chodesh of that falls out on a Shabbos? There are a bunch of Rosh Chodashim that fall on Shabbos that we don't lane the exact haftarah like Chanukah, etc. Rosh Hashanah, we lane different haftarahs. Maftir chodshechem oidechem son and avshi. Hashem is saying, my soul hates. Hoyo alai l'toyrach. It's a burden on me. My hoyo alai l'toyrach. What Hashem has burdens. He can't carry something. Oh my gosh, baruch hu leidayin lehem liYisrael shechaytim lefonai. It's not enough that they sin. El shematrichen oisi kaviyachol. They cause me tircha, a burden. Leidai zigzera kashav aleim. I have to figure it out now. What should I do to them? And that's too much for me, so to speak. But Tisha B'Av, gufei my maftirin. What kind of haftarah? I don't know if it's the right words to say. It's too much for me. It's a tayrach for me. There's no tircha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but he uses lishna b'nei adam. You cause me aggravation. I have to think how to punish you in a good way, in a bad way. Learn a lesson. I don't need this. Don't sin. I don't have to do this. But Tisha B'Av, gufei my maftirin. What are you laying on Tisha B'Av? Amarav echa haisa l'zayna. Mikra Mayim. What's the reading of the Torah, not the Torah? Tanya cherim oimrim. Shmuly, that's about, it's the curses, the klalis, and the churban. What's going to happen if you don't listen to me? I'm going to destroy you. Bar Yosef Omer Ad Ono Yinatsuni Omazeh. It's talking about the Meraglim. Until when are you going to anger me? Says the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When did Meraglim happen? Meraglim happened on Tisha B'Av. Atem b'chizim b'chiyah shashav, and now you're going to cry for the rest of the generations. So we're talking about the Meraglim. Also, it's talking about the actual Meraglim himself. That if you're going to sin, it says over there in the next pasuk, I'm going to destroy you. So those who are representing Klal Yisrael, they read Parshas Bereshis. Without Klal Yisrael davening and bringing the korbanos and talking that the korbanos, the korban tamid should come every day, and it should be Oile Yafa, the world would disappear. Shenemar im loy brisi yomim v'layla chugi shemayim loy varetz leisamti uchsiv vayoymar Hashem elikim b'mo eida ki Yerushena. So Avram tells HaKadosh Baruch Hu, How do I know you're telling me the truth? So that's the simple meaning, and it's not very flattering for Avram. It doesn't make sense that he would talk like that. So Gemara says, what you have to do is just change the two words around. Eida b'ma, not b'ma eida. Not, prove to me. But when the situation happens, what could I tell my children? What could they do to undo the evil or the sins that they've done? Eida b'ma. Maybe they'll sin chas v'shalom. And you're going to bring a mabel to the world. You're going to destroy them. Don't worry about it. I'm never going to destroy them like that. What should I tell them to do that they could rectify the situation, explains Rashi. Bring three calves. But it doesn't mean bring. It means your children, if they ever sin, bring a carbon. That's the beauty of the Beis Hamikdash. That's why we're so sad we don't have a Beis Hamikdash. Because if you sin, there's a way out of it. You bring a carbon, and hopefully Hashem is mechaper. That's great when there's a Beis Hamikdash. What are you going to do? What are they going to do? And we talk about this all the time. By saying the korbanos, by talking about the korbanos, or the Balkar reading the korbanos. Because you could get out of your averos by reading korbanos. So today also, I'm talking to myself because I'm not very good at it. One thing I wasn't confident myself is to say the most important one, carbon tamid. That's number one because it applies to every day. Every day we're supposed to bring a carbon tamid in the morning. So if somebody doesn't have time, he should at least say carbon tamid. But the Gemara says it over and over, and every time I read it, I say, okay, I'm going to do it tomorrow. Maybe you guys will do it. Somebody will write me an email. I did it because of you, but I don't do it myself. Hopefully tomorrow, yeah. That what? When you say korbanos, you have kavanah to the korbanos. It's mechaper. And like Lauren Spiegelman sent the email in from Rabbi Milinowitz. And I just saw it in the Mishnah Berurah last night. The Mishnah Berurah also says, when you say Parshas Haman, you talk about the man, it's not a zgula for parnasa. It doesn't mean here, I actually have it right here. David Address gave me one. Harry Shalom gave me a beautiful one here. But if you say Parshas Haman like this, you're going to become wealthy? No. You have to have in mind that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mefarnes and he gives parnasa. Even in the midbar, he has the ability to send down the man. It's not you say these words in hocus pocus because you buy a beautiful cloth or somebody gives you a nice gift, you become wealthy. That's not how it works. You have to have kavanah. So too by the korbanos. Have kavanah. I'm saying korban chatos because in Eretz Yisrael you have a dud, you have like a container of water on the roof. All of a sudden I start getting messages and videos. Mine exploded. Water's flying everywhere. Call the plumber. A frum guy. And he tells me, when he finished, he says, if you turn on your hot water on Shabbos, you're chayav achatos. It's a dairaisa, your water, because every time you turn it on, it's automatic hot. There's no boilers in Eretz Yisrael. They don't really have it. You turn it on, it heats up the water, fire shoots out, chayav chatos. So if you're over by mistake, b'shoigig, you have to bring in carbon chatos. But we don't have chatos. So when you read the carbon chatos, you have to think to yourself, I turned on the water by mistake on Shabbos, and I have to bring a $500 carbon, but I don't have the money, I don't have the thing. I'm going to say carbon chatos. But the idea is brachas u'klalis v'hem asikim u'klalis. Not only mean Omer Reb Bar Gamdo, Omer Rabasi, Domar Kro, Musar Hashem b'ni al timos. There's a guy called Shweki. Some of you heard about him. So Hashem says, don't despise my musar. And Rashi says other say pshat is from the end of the pasuk. It's the same idea. Don't be mos in the teichacha. Also, lashon musar. So memela, if you're middle of the klalos, you can't stop in middle. You can't be mos. You can't show you despise it. You got to say the whole thing. Rish Lakish says, go from beginning to end. Don't stop in the middle. Because what's the guy going to do? The guy's going to get an aliyah. And he's going to read a terrible thing. The women are going to eat the flesh of their kids. Terrible. You make a bracha on that. So what do you do? You start a pasuk, or today we do 3 psukim before. You go all the way through. So you say a bracha on something good, so you do a few psukim before. You make a bracha on something good, you say a few psukim later. So that we discussed before. There's the klalas in Vayikra. My taima says the Gemara, halalu b'lashon rabbi ma'amuros u'moshe b'piagvura amaron. There's dark blue and light blue. I don't know if you can see, but this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, and you see, v'imloi tishmu'u li. Hashem is talking li. So these are serious curses. These are Hashem himself said it. But later on in Devarim, Perek Chav Ches, this is Moshe Rabbeinu talking. You're Hashem, not Hashem talking. I'm saying it in the name of Hashem. Lishmar Lasis is called mitzvah Sav, his mitzvahs. So therefore, it's a little lighter. Levi barbuti have a kari v'komik gamgim kamed Rav Huna barure. When Levi was saying the klalos, he was megamgim. Says Rashi, he was reading it really quickly, and he was stumbling on the words. You see it a lot of times in a shtibel by mincha. The guy knows that he doesn't know what he's saying, but he thinks if he says it really quick and he says Baruch Atah Hashem Refuah, so all the words in between they count. You say it really quick, you stumble, gumble, and you go weiter. That's what he was doing. So, Omaloi, aken nafshach. It's like nafshach, to your heart's desire. What do you want? You want to stop? You had enough of this? You're going very fast. They point out that that's why today, based on this Levi, that's why today the Bakari goes very fast. You're stumbling. You want to get out of here? You could go. This that you cannot stop in the middle of an aliyah is talking about the ones from Vayikra, the ones that Hashem said. That even if you're stumbling, gumbling, keep on going. Go to the end. But if you have a problem with this and you're not comfortable saying it, stop in the middle, because that's what Moshe Rabbeinu said. Rabbi Sai, have a wonderful day.